To be continued. Welcome to the Liberty UA channel. Today our guest is Denis Eliseevich, an entrepreneur and active politician. Welcome, Denis.
Hello, Tatiana. Hello.
I encourage all viewers to subscribe to our Liberty UA channel, give us likes and write comments. And I want to emphasize to people who don't have the opportunity to watch the full video, please subscribe to our Liberty TV channel. You will find the link to this channel in the description of this video. Subscribe to Denis's channel. Denis, could you comment on why our delegation was not present at the meeting between the American and Russian delegations yesterday? Surely they were talking about Ukraine.
Zelensky recently said that the meeting has been postponed for now because of the events in Iran.
Why are we not at the negotiating table again, even though we are ready for peace, as he says?
Well, you know, we are not ready for peace. Zelensky is not ready for peace. I want to tell you, it's just that there is a format of trilateral negotiations. There is a bilateral format of negotiations. The trilateral format, the rescheduling, it may take place next week in Istanbul. This was a bilateral format of negotiations. The topic there was not just Ukraine. There was also the topic of Iran and other countries where different things could happen, things that are unpleasant for Russia and for China. But of course, Ukraine was also discussed. If you're asking me how I evaluate this, you know, I view any negotiations positively, even if, as they say, a negative result is still a result. We don't know the result, and I have no expectations. Yesterday, I didn't expect Vitkov to come out saying, guys, we spoke with Dmitriev. We have such a breakthrough. There will be peace the day after tomorrow. There's an agreement not to share anything with the press, good or bad, to prevent the pendulum effect. We talked, it lasted a long time. Thank God we're watching what happens next.
We hear different statements from Volodymyr Zelensky.
He says that his main goal now is to protect the Constitution. That's exactly what he says. My task is to protect the Constitution, so I can't give up any territories. And the Germans come forward and say that they are ready to give us weapons, but they will only provide 200 units because there is no money to give us more weapons.
Orban needs to stop blocking this money, the 90 billion in credit that was being discussed, so that's why.
That's why there's a reason. If we defend the Constitution without weapons, how is that going to happen?
Yes, you know, it's such a, oh, how can I put this politely on air? Let's say such a fake, such a low blow. What Constitution is he defending? He wiped his feet on that Constitution. You know, it's impossible to wipe your feet on the American Constitution because there's the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms and to armed rebellion, and this amendment protects the Constitution. That is, a US citizen thinks like an American. If my right, my freedom is violated, my constitutional right, I legally take up arms, and after that I'm not considered a criminal, and I go against the authorities, against officials to defend my rights. But would you trust Zelensky with anything in your life? Would you trust him with your life? Never. I think you would never trust him. And here he is supposedly protecting the whole Constitution. It's all fake. About Europeans, you know, I always try, when I'm not getting carried away or emotional, to make a distinction. I'm for Europeans, for Europe. Europe is great. I'm for a rich, capitalist, democratic Europe as a Western civilization. But I'm against those leaders who are sitting there deceitfully, egging Ukraine onto war. And that one, I don't even want to say who, just saying, go on, go on, go on, go on over there. Reuters writes that in 2029 there will be a war between Russia and NATO, and Ukraine will help. Have you seen how people live in Ukraine? Have you seen how they're being dragged into vans? And do you know what happens to the soldiers, to the military on the front lines? Do you know that people in Ukraine have nothing to live on? Do you know about the level of corruption? Do you know that this is already the 5th year of war in the center of Europe? In 2026, when there are such innovations in the world, nobody cares about anything. Absolutely nobody cares, nothing matters. Oh, about the money, let me finish. You said there are 90 billion, Orban is blocking it. You know, Ursula, I think, spoke and said, if we can't pressure Orban now, there are other sources, we'll allocate 30 billion for you, not 90, but 30. And already non-Ukrainian economists have calculated this will be enough until the end of June. We're talking right now, it's mid-March until the end of June. Before that, the IMF supposedly gave 8 billion and we can hold out until May. What does this remind you of? It reminds you of a body that's already dead, and this life support machine. They brought in a small amount of oxygen, but the body was already dead. Here in America, now we talk with you every few days. Yesterday I read, or maybe even today I read, the US spent $11.6 billion on the war in Iran. And again, there's a fuss around this. Some taxpayers are unhappy. Some people are dissatisfied. Of course, the Democrats are stirring up this topic. Tatiana, $11.6 billion, the richest country in the world. A GDP of $1,031 billion. We send 50 billion here, 100 there, 30 there. And we're the poorest country in the world. We're in the red. We're bankrupt. What's going on? This isn't right. They don't treat us like people. I'll be doing a broadcast tomorrow. Well, we're talking a bit earlier than when the broadcast will air. But anyway, on Friday, I'll have a broadcast. Zelensky essentially is an arms baron. I was the first to come up with this formula a long time ago. And Ukraine is an arms hub. There's even a movie called Lord of War with Nicolas Cage. It's the same. I mean, Europe sat down. And not yesterday, Tatiana, not yesterday. They sat down earlier and decided, look, they've had over 30 years of independence, and they're right next to Europe. They had starting capital, 52 million residents, nuclear weapons, a bunch of enterprises, the richest country, wonderful people, a unique geographical location. The majority are white Christians, so there can't be any racial issues. There are no natural disasters. They screwed everything up, the officials, they screwed everything up, and people kept electing such officials and such leaders. Well, probably they won't succeed at anything anymore. So, considering their unique geographical location, they will be a buffer between us and the wild Putin, and let them fight there. We'll tell them they're great, we'll tell them they're the shield of Europe, and we'll make a weapons hub there, they'll produce weapons cheaply. We'll appoint some useful idiot there, someone reckless who will do whatever we say. We'll give him money, he'll steal it. Partially, but we agree with that, but we'll live wonderfully in Europe. So I'll say it again, I'm for Europe, I'm for a great Europe. I want Ukraine to partner with, not join, an EU like this. Trade and travel are fine. We must be together, the Western civilization, against those wild ones, but not in a way where we're just pushed around. No money, but you hang in there. But the president apparently agrees to this.
Regarding that, Europe wants, well, we had a broadcast with Zerkinsky, with Serhiy, and he says that Europeans are still inclined to maintain contacts with Putin.
They want oil to come specifically from Putin through pipelines. They don't want to receive oil by sea. They want it through pipelines. So they don't want to buy American oil.
Putin can't wait for Ukraine to sit down at the negotiating table so that the Europeans will ask him for this, and then he can make a deal with the Europeans to continue supplying them with oil.
Why do you think the Europeans will do this? Why is it less profitable for them to get oil from America? I just don't understand.
Well, Rachinsky is basically right. That's exactly the concept. Look, this is a very complex situation. It's not all about just this. It's not only tied to this. Right now, there's an ideological conflict between the leaders of the European Union and the Americans. The Americans are pushing capitalism further. They're promoting freedom of speech, the basic values of Western civilization. Europe, with its current leaders, sees things a bit differently. And that's a fundamental point. As Trump Jr. said, America now is not just an idiot with a checkbook going around writing checks for everyone. You transferred 350 billion to Putin for energy resources, he's bombing you, and we're giving you NATO, which is the biggest strain on the US. You have a problem, guys. Here's a check. Here are 0 tariffs. You see, in reality, Trump didn't do anything extraordinary. He's just removing injustice. Historically, everyone thought that the US was a cash cow, that we would milk it and live however we wanted, and that's what led to this crisis. What is Rachinsky right about? Of course, there is nothing more valuable than the fleets and the US. And now Europe will actually be strengthening Trump's position, like, look, Trump made us bend, we're paying more. But ideologically, if there were other leaders in the European Union, they would sit down and think about it. We are one whole. We've been in an alliance with the US for over 80 years. We defeated Hitler as a coalition. We need to stick together. There are new challenges in the world. There's Trump. Yes, he's a peculiar person. You can consider him peculiar, but you need to trade with them, appease him. He will lower tariffs. We are ideologically aligned with them. We will remove censorship and so on and so on. Rutte is behaving the most correctly of all. It's not exactly a political position, the NATO Secretary General, but I see how he maneuvers. He's acting strategically right. And what does Europe want? Consider their actions. Ukraine is left to fight Putin alone. After years without contact, now Macron and apparently Germany are speaking with him. Little by little, let's buy something from him, let's restore this oil pipeline, let the oil flow, and you go fight. So this is madness. Let's finance the war ourselves, against Ukraine. You see, this is it. Well, I'll tell you what the real issue is, what the reason is, the complete failure of the European Union's economy, the complete failure of immigration policy. They see what this has led to. Now, there's the Iran situation too, but how is it related? And we can't do anything about it, so let's just do what we used to. Let Putin keep corrupting top EU officials. Let's do one thing with the left hand and something else with the right hand. After all, in 2016 or 2017, during his first term, Trump told Stoltenberg and Merkel was sitting at the table. In my opinion, you're asking us for protection, you're funding Putin, and you don't even want to pay 5% of your contribution to NATO. And now look at what Spain is doing.
And what?
Do they want to promote their own policy? When you are in an alliance with Trump and the next president of the US is a Republican, you need to return to basic values. And returning to basic values means losing your resources. That's the point, Tatiana. They want to collect 40 to 50% in taxes and manage them themselves. And surely with some nuances, let me tell you, I don't have the facts, it's not my area, but with nuances. And if you give people freedom, freedom of speech, people will expose them on social media, write things like, look, this is wrong, this is a corrupt official, what are you doing? Put pressure on them, and they will lose their positions and lose that enormous resource. So Europe needs to go back to its basic values, to better times when Europe was great. And this movement, so to speak, that Musk started, make Europe great again, that's what needs to happen. But now the haters will listen to me and think, yeah, who are you anyway? They don't understand these basic things and the real reasons behind all of this. They think it's just about Trump and that everything is tied to last names. Politically, it might look that way to some people, but the issue is much deeper. There has never been censorship in Europe, and there shouldn't be censorship in Europe. As for them wanting to trade with Putin, I'm actually in favor of everyone trading with everyone. But not where we trade and you still launch missiles at us.
Why should our Ukrainians have to teach the Germans who say that they decided that in 2029 Putin would attack them?
There's little time. We need to prepare. We need Ukrainians to come and train the specialists.
Why didn't Germans from other countries come to us when the war started, saying that if specialists came, then Ukraine would be entering the war, so we can only provide weapons? Why should we get involved in this war now?
You mean the war in the future?
In the future one.
And this one, do you mean?
I mean that our specialists have to go to Iran, and there is also some dissatisfaction about this, and the Germans say that we should come to them in 2029 as well. So we have to help everyone who needs it, but no one came to us so as not to get involved in the war. Why should we get involved in it?
Look, with America and the Middle East, it's not that simple. Zelensky has a good relationship with the Middle East, with Arab countries, and thanks to America, Ukraine exists and has survived today, so we can't refuse. But I emphasize, you have never heard, not from any Arab leaders, nor from Americans, that they called Zelensky and asked. It was Zelensky himself who said that. There is nothing like that in the press about it. The mayor made up some kind of war for the year 2029. Think about what we're discussing. Think about what we're discussing. In 3 years there will be a war, but what if there isn't? What if there isn't? You see? And why didn't you prepare Ukraine for war if you know now? Why didn't you come to Zelensky back then? At that time, Scholz, all of them, Macron, and they didn't say, Vladimir, you have a war coming, don't you listen to the CIA? They were sitting there rubbing their hands. They were sitting there rubbing their hands. And there's a video on the internet. It came out much later, after the war started. Someone films Macron from the side on a phone as Zelensky calls him on the first day of the war, telling him they're bombing, while Macron folds his hands. And he's like, oh, so are you sure it's a full-scale war? Are you sure it's not just a local conflict? Zelensky tells him everything. It's a full-scale war. They're bombing the whole country. Call Putin. Do something. And that's how it all happened, about that. But in general, you say that now we'll always be dragged in because we owe everyone. That's the first thing. We owe everyone. And Zelensky is ready to sign anything. He'll sell anyone, any Ukrainian. He'll sell the whole country. Just to stay in power, he'll get involved in any conflicts, whether they're necessary or not. You see, we need to become an ally of the US, and then if the US has any problems, we can talk about it as allies. Israel and the US are now jointly bombing Iran, but that's another discussion. And when Zelensky is ready to be a proxy, he was ready to be a proxy for Biden, ready to be a proxy for Merz. They don't even hide it. Merz comes out and says it. And they're all proxies. It's a proxy. You see, we're basically a huge mercenary army, and Zelensky is ready to take their money for salaries. All of this, Tatiana, will already lead us to disaster, to an apocalypse. The scenario I'm describing is exactly what's happening. Ukraine simply won't exist. I mean, the way you know it, the way I know it, the way our viewers who live there know it, it just won't exist. Because that's not a life. To live under rockets, that's not a life to always be in debt. That's not a life to not know what will happen tomorrow, how Putin will act. Everything is right next door, and you don't know what's going to happen. It's not the same anymore. Children aren't studying in schools. Students aren't really studying. Everyone is leaving. It's just not the same. It's a beautiful territory that has been mismanaged to this point. And also considering our neighbor Putin.
Do you think that Europeans also believe that something is wrong with Ukraine?
Because today a decision was made regarding the European Parliament blocking Ukraine's simplified accession to the European Union. They say that Moldova can move forward. There are reasons for this.
One of the reasons is that Orban doesn't want this.
Further, if Ukraine takes some actions, it's not specified exactly what actions, then this threatens a freeze and a step back. That's why the Europeans eventually decided that we can't join the European Union in a simplified way, not even like Moldova in the future.
Look, I constantly point out the problems of the European Union's leaders, but we have to admit that there is order there after all. We have to admit they're using Zelensky and Ukraine for their own benefit. But they clearly see who they are dealing with, and they really don't want to have such people sitting at the table with them. Today, a European political article reported that Zelensky is being rude to everyone, including Trump and others. And like we are supposedly the closest partners, as Europe considers itself, the closest partner of Ukraine in this war. But like he's already making statements that are on the verge of crossing the line, or maybe even beyond it. So why do they need a person like that with some kind of authority, you know? I mean, if they let him sit at the table, he'll twist their arms or something like that. They know, Tatiana, about all this corruption and whose minibuses those are. In Hungary, they use people like that for their own interests. They're ready to allow it for their own benefit. They're ready. You know, America has financed a lot in the jungles in different countries, uprisings in Latin America, in the jungles. There were these militias, they were given weapons, dollars, and they happily ran there, fought for their own, and behaved accordingly. To put it mildly, they didn't always behave decently. It was very strange, but it was beneficial for America, which is completely understandable. So they're using us, Zelensky, in pretty much the same role. He's kind of odd, but basically it's in our interest. For now, let him just stay somewhere on the sidelines. We'll take a photo with him, pat him on the shoulder, say he's great and leave, but we, our European country, will sit with our big family, like decent, civilized people. Yes, also with some nuances, but we know how we feel about each other. We're equals. We understand each other, and we don't need any strange people. And why does Europe need Ukraine in its current state? I mean, you see, it's all very complicated, but we also don't need to join such a European Union. But that's it. The official response has arrived. Well, is anyone going to come out now and say it to you, the so-called opposition or the authorities? Will anyone come out now and say, we led you into the European Union for so many years, but they told us we won't be there? That's why we're stopping this course. We wanted to join NATO, but they won't take us. So we're stopping this course, and now we'll pursue other goals. We are a neutral country. We focus on our own interests. We cooperate and trade with everyone. We have a new national idea now. We need to rebuild our country. Go ahead, come back. Here are the conditions. Here you have no freedom. Look, ban this, ban voting, ban this, ban taxes, ban restrict, ban Telegram. Shut things down there. Now there's a new thing. Draft dodgers aren't allowed to vote. There will be more to come.
So,
well, it's a wonderful country, just an amazing country. Some idiots sat down and decided for millions that they're better than others. The draft dodgers don't vote, they're to blame, and gold bars go to Hungary, go ahead, and Menedjegate, Energoatom, hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, the draft dodgers are to blame for everything, and they can't vote, let the corrupt ones vote.
Igor Mosichuk was called a draft dodger by the honest Mobilization.
But he really helps the army. His son is in the military, he's abroad, he has a disability, but they said he's a draft dodger, so he won't be allowed to vote. Also, those who left the country illegally won't be allowed either, but that's information provided by Dmitry Razumkov's center.
for some reason we associated him with people who are promising modern, and who would act with some new approaches.
That's how the community sees him. So what happened?
No, I don't associate him that way, and I don't associate that center with that either. Nothing happened. It's Ukraine. Besides, do you think that data is wrong? I think that's pretty much how things are. Most of our society has been deceived. We've discussed this more than once, and lately I've come to a conclusion. I've thought about this for a long time. Time goes by, and I realize that what the people want, they don't get. You don't want so-called draft dodgers to vote, but instead you'll have votes from corrupt officials, government employees, and volunteers who have stolen money. As we can already see, they will all vote for you, and they'll choose people just like themselves, and will continue to destroy the country. But you understand, they will vote now, let's say, and won't allow those they don't like to participate in the elections. Although, well, if the states are involved, they won't be able to do that. But will they participate, or will voting not be allowed? But then new ones will come again, the catastrophe will start again, and who did we choose? Look, Misha Tkach will be running around filming investigations, only there will be different last names, this one, that one, those heroes. Do you even see this at all? In one brigade, two brothers raped their sister, yet the press portrayed them as war heroes. They are just like corrupt officials. Because over these years, society has been made to believe that there are these superhumans and then there are some outcasts, and that it's the outcasts who are to blame for everything. But it turns out that's not the case. And when I've been saying for years what needs to be done, giving suggestions, all the facts confirm it. They're looking for something, like something's wrong. Why aren't you speaking the way they want? Why aren't you where they want you to be? Why this? You see, that's all there is to it. That's all.
Yesterday, we had a broadcast with Ruslan Horbenko. I read the comments people wrote to us, and one woman wrote, "God save us because people like him. All the deputies, they're all like that."
But, well, we can't just rely on that. What do you think could save us?
So for this person, what's the answer? What will save us?
Only ourselves, only we ourselves. Every citizen of Ukraine, regardless of location, political views, religion, or anything else, must understand what they want in this life. Especially those people who either live in Ukraine or plan to return and live in Ukraine. What do I want from Ukraine? What kind of country do I want Ukraine to resemble? This is the first question you need to ask yourself, because they all say they want Switzerland, America, or Canada. But when it comes down to it, they want to kill this one, ban that one, add more taxes here, not let someone speak, throw someone in jail, or persecute someone's family. Well, no, that's Iran. But I haven't heard of anyone coming out and saying, I'm fighting for Ukraine so it can be like Iran. But judging by their words, they all want exactly Iran. I read the comments and see how they talk. It's just like the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. And that's the question where 90% will fall apart. And so what I'm doing is bringing together an electoral coalition of people who understand what's needed, who stand for freedom, who stand for capitalism, and only this will save Ukraine. So that Ukraine, in the full sense of the word, becomes a country of Western civilization. Considering the dangerous neighbor, of course, behavior and smoothing over rough edges are important. As long as that ruler is in power, we'll see how life goes. But we kept getting hyped up, and in the end, it's just keep fighting, guys. I haven't finished the article yet. There was a sensational piece in Ukrainska Pravda. Our broadcast started earlier, and apparently someone said something there. An insider from Zelensky's entourage told Ukrainska Pravda that Zelensky gathered his team and said, Europe wants us to fight a few more years, so elections are cancelled. Let's plan how to keep fighting. I knew earlier because he had already gathered everyone and said, guys, we've been fighting for 3 years. Let's figure out what to do. We had Fedorov come in, a young guy, not an informant. He even mentioned the Territorial Recruitment Center. Zelensky said the word buzification. The whole society was waiting for changes. But what do we see in the end? Tougher measures, bridges are being blocked, they're grabbing people in videos, mobilization is getting stricter, there are more and more videos, they're involving the police, and the police have been given pepper spray. This, you understand, this is Iran, this is Iran. Here's what I'll say. I don't know if the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps would mobilize like this, or if a US ground operation would prompt them to mobilize ordinary civilians who aren't part of the guards. It's just a spectacle. And you know, I even have some naive followers, but I don't blame them. I try to explain to them, like, Denis, make a post so that people in Europe can see it, so that they can see it there. Yes, Europe sees all of this, knows all of this, and they're fine with it. The current European leaders. Don't be naive.
Honcharенko spoke in front of Europeans in the Parliamentary Assembly and said that mobilization is something we need help to stop. Yesterday, Malamush was on air. He says that he is appealing to international law enforcement agencies so that the Kvartal 95 and law enforcement officers are called to the front and people are given peace. No one is reacting, no one is responding in any way.
But Vadim Ivchenko, a current deputy, says that new punishments are being prepared, restrictions on driving, banking operations, and administrative services. The draft laws are already being discussed. So what you're saying is that Europe is suggesting we fight. That's the kind of mobilization. In Venezia, other mobile groups have started working at the city level. They decided that the HOA representatives would go door to door and personally deliver the summons. If the man isn't at home because he's refusing, they draw up a report. This is the mayor's order as of March 6th. Can you comment on this in any way?
Yes, I can. Let's not just give my opinion, but discuss it logically with facts. Currently, many people from Nepal, Bangladesh, and similar countries are coming to work in Ukraine. Numerous companies have emerged, supplying workers for any profession and in any number. If you need 1,000, they'll bring 1,000. They arrive in a month. These people whom I have nothing against, I'm not a racist, not even close. They work here, they earn money, and they're not subject to mobilization. Meanwhile, a Ukrainian man who could work there, he doesn't want to or can't join the army, but he can work there, support himself, and not ask anyone for anything. Generate GDP. Since the war is going on, you'll spend it on the war, but it will be generated by your own people, and he won't be disappointed in this country. This man is sitting at home now. Millions are sitting at home, and now they're telling him, we forbid you to drive a car. So maybe let's forbid them to eat, to use the bathroom, let's say. We're closing it, you can't use the bathroom, go outside instead. These are basic human needs, driving a car, having bank accounts. They're saying to forbid these things. This is fascism. It's fascism against their own people. Pure fascism, pure fascists. Tatiana, so what will they be doing during this time, transporting dollars by bus? And will they use the main SBU generals to control and organize this whole scheme? And will they have the right to drive a car? You see, and some Ukrainian guy is the one to blame. Let people think about it themselves. I'm not giving any judgment. I'm just telling you the facts. Bringing in outsiders while sending their own people to the cemetery, to some hole, or to the front lines, these are madmen running the country. And here we are already opposing them ideologically. We must not let Ukraine become this weapons hub, this porcupine. Ukraine should be a successful, full-fledged country in the center of Europe. All other opinions, I understand. Everyone's true colors have shown. Everyone has realized. They've stolen here, they've stolen there. All the reports are about theft. Everywhere they're stealing, and everyone is involved in these schemes. That's what Ukraine is needed for. Let me say it again. Of course, for them, it's the enemy. They don't care about Ukraine. They love themselves in this kind of Ukraine because they're privileged and can steal money. But in a civilized, successful Ukraine, there will be no place for them. They won't have a place there. And they understand perfectly well that right now is their shining moment. Just don't call yourselves patriots and nationalists when all you're doing is making money.
You say that Zelensky, if there were elections, wouldn't win in any case, whether they were in 1 round, 2, or even 3.
And what if draft dodgers are those who left, both women and men, from Ukraine? If they don't vote, then does Zelensky have a chance to win?
Well, I think no. Let me put it this way. If I'm wrong, please tell me. Zelensky is under crazy pressure from Trump. Then why, if everything is so clear and he wins 100%, why didn't he hold these elections? He could have rigged it in 1 round through DIA any way he wanted. As you mentioned, why doesn't he exclude certain population segments? And you know, it would be perfect for him right now to hold elections, win, and say, I'm legitimate. Another 5 years, none of you can say anything now. Even Eliseevich can't say I'm illegitimate. Here are the elections, here I won. But for some reason, he's not doing that. So think about it. Why?
Because there's a big risk. I think there's a chance to win, but there's also a big risk of not winning.
Well, theoretically, everyone has a chance, let's put it that way. But there's also a nuance that many people don't understand. If someone thinks that tomorrow Zelensky will be pressured, he announces elections, and the US will stand aside and just watch. Oh, falsification, oh, he cut off those citizens. Americans can't imagine denying any group the right to vote. It's as unthinkable as not holding elections on time. That's why everything happens this way. And I say again to people, it's not so simple for him, and he understands that perfectly well.
Take the mayor of the city of Dnipro. He spoke and said that society is dumbed down. He used the word dumbed down. This is the reason not to hold elections. Today he got into such an emotional argument with a blogger. You can't see what the blogger wrote, but there is a screenshot of what Filatov wrote.
He wrote a bunch of swear words that I unfortunately can't quote because they're terrible, but the media chose to quote the less awful ones. My hog, it won't fit in your mouth. This is a person who apparently was talking about the front line, and the other says, go to the front, and Filatov replies, it won't fit in your mouth. You little brat, again with the swearing. You were still hanging on a dick as a sperm. Your mom's a collaborator. I was already wearing stylish jackets.
That's how he addresses Lachenkov, to Ihor Lachenkov.
Well, basically, I agree with Lachenkov's assessment. I don't want to choose between two types. But in general, can a city mayor behave like that? Well, of course not. But who elected Filatov? He's been mayor for 11 years, I think, and it was the residents of Dnipro who elected him. We're coming back to the point that people get what they want, and I don't even want to discuss this filth and nastiness. All of this looks like a banana republic, not like a country of Western civilization. Thank you for watching. It's all beneficial for them. They want to live like this, to communicate like this, to have this privilege, this status above the citizens. You are all just commoners, and I am above you. Each of them is in their own place. The small fry look at all this, latch onto it, they get thrown some scraps from the master's table, and they start doing the same thing. He sets the tone for everyone with his rhetoric. The president, who is rude to everyone, threatens everyone, sets this kind of tone. Whether you want it or not, everyone picks it up. He's the president and behaves that way, so why can't I? Others watch, even those who don't dislike him. They think, look, he steals, he acts in his own interest, everyone does it, so why should I waste my life on this? I'd rather just do the same. So as life gives me chances, I'll use them. The moral side of the issue doesn't matter, the future doesn't matter. Many people think I'll grab what I can now, and then when it's over, that's it.
Gorokovsky, the conflict that happened with the girl Botka, who is at the front, became very widely known. And what is the outrage? The outrage basically over his behavior. Thank you. She called the hotline, wanted to come for verification. They took photos of her, which later appeared online, said that she didn't wash her hair on time, and that she supports Russian narratives. This girl is outraged. Gorokovsky apologized. You could say that today. I think there should be banking secrecy here. A person's right to privacy. If she was offended, she should demand some kind of compensation. That's how it should be.
Well, if I may, I'll answer briefly, because I'm sure there are already people who will watch this. Many will have already seen it. We're not talking about that here, maybe in another stream or video, but I'll tell you briefly. And what if this girl was a complete Putin supporter? Let's imagine that scenario. Yes, and she's a citizen of Ukraine, so now you can look at her personal data. Tatiana, we've been talking about this the whole stream. And in America, Maduro is kidnapped. He's sitting in a cell waiting for trial. They didn't put him against the wall. They didn't shoot him. And so people must understand, great patriots must understand, if this country is a democratic country of Western civilization, then even the worst scoundrel has the same rights as everyone else. And there's no proof she betrayed Ukraine, right? But there are other facts. Her dad is in the AFU. Within 5 minutes, they sent me her threads page, and you can't fake posts after the fact. There are Ukrainian posts there in the Ukrainian language. I don't want to judge Gorokovsky at all. That's a whole different conversation. I'll tell you this, as someone who lives in Western civilization, specifically in America, if some banker allowed himself something like that, or the CEO of some bank, first of all, the bank would immediately be at risk of losing its license. And in America, getting a banking license, I don't even know what to compare it to in terms of difficulty. Right away, top law firms would surround you because for them it's a case and they'd say, you'll share a portion of the settlement. This is a winning case worth tens of millions of dollars, and in Europe, I think millions of euros. And in Europe, they would sue for something like this, and that's incredible. But the most important thing is, it turns out there is a private, well, that's what I assume, there is a private chat where Monobank employees sit and laugh at our photos, and share them among themselves. Well, I don't know then, but still, what's the point? If it wasn't Gorokovsky, it would be someone else, and it would be exactly the same. There is a certain group of lackeys, this pack to be precise, a pack, around Zelensky, around the authorities, around the special services. They're privileged. Look at how they take advantage of this situation. Yes, we are the law. Why does Gorokovsky need that? I am the law, I am the law, I am Gorokovsky, close to the authorities, to the special services, I am the law. Oh, I'll post about this girl. He didn't even apologize. He just makes a post. Then that's it. I understand. I realize my mistake. Now I'll send everything straight to the special services. What are you going to send? 15 centimeters of a flag. If it had been a full Russian tricolor, there'd be no question. She's a Vatnik, but she has the same rights as a citizen of Ukraine. That's how much of the flag is visible. I'll tell you without false modesty, I got an A+ in geography. I know nearly all world flags. If I can't fully see a flag, I instantly picture 3 possibilities. In this case, it was Slovenia's flag. Well, in short, no matter how you look at it, whether you're on that side or this side, whether you like it or not, from the point of view of Ukrainian law, the future, democracy, normality, this is completely unacceptable. But our country is for the privileged, and we're just decorations. We're on the menu, in the menu.
But Hodorkovsky might not have known this flag. It's usually athletes who know the flags of all countries, that's true. And as a businessman, he might not have known. Not as a businessman, but who is he? Yes, an entrepreneur. So here's an interesting situation. We might not get quality service in a state institution. Monobank is a private institution, and you also support private organizations.
A private organization always wants to keep the client, somehow attract them, interest them, so to speak, and then retain them and make them a regular customer. Why don't we have this in a private organization? They don't follow through.
Because, Tatiana, we don't have a market. Because if I want to open a bank tomorrow and I have the necessary starting capital, then the question will arise of getting a license in a specific way. And then to get into, how should I say, into the aquarium with those who are circling around the system. That's why all of this is done kind of within the market, but also with privileges and with a questionable way of diving in right away. I'm an entrepreneur myself, I'm a capitalist, I don't want to sneak in from here. But Hodorkovsky didn't create Monobank out of nowhere, out of nothing. Before that, he worked at the peculiar private bank, which in a specific way became state-owned. And there are a lot of specific nuances there. There are court cases going on all over the world. Hodorkovsky probably had access, I assume, to a huge database, to clients and other things, you know? So, it's not just out of nowhere, not from scratch, but immediately to check me. I'm not accusing anyone, I'm just thinking out loud. And would that be possible in America, that you're here, you're there, and then that's it, no more? There you have the answer to the whole question. And then they hold business conferences, young people come and they say work 24/7. Access to state enterprises, the second is monopoly, the third is close to the government, rubbing shoulders, and you just work. 99% of these young guys try to do something in Ukraine, but the system prevents them from succeeding. They end up thinking they're talentless when really they were just listening. People who were privileged from a certain point, maybe at the beginning everything was fair, but from some point on, to achieve this, they became privileged. That's all. That's why I'm for a free market, an open market, fair professional competition for everyone, including myself. And those are exactly the kinds of businesses I was involved in, and from this point of view, I have moral superiority in Ukraine. I mean, that's a separate conversation now. Even if I wanted to, it wouldn't work out in the countries where I am now. So that's how it is, and people should decide for themselves whom to listen to and what to do.
Regarding the HOA, I would like to go back. I would like to return there because the HOA is an initiative group.
That is, a group of residents who live in the same building decided to improve it, add greenery, insulate it, and created their own groups.
Just like we were in the Federation, we united our regions with each other. And what's the point? People should take care of the building.
The mayor tells them, go and hand out draft notices, and if not, make reports on those who are evading.
So, even if we weren't divided, if we were also in regions, if federalization had taken place, then that order would have come from above and it would have been the same. Just like in the homeowners association, we would have had to obey and carry it out. And what's the difference whether we're in regions or under centralized authority?
Are you asking what might have happened in a federal system?
Can we draw such an analogy? No, we can't.
I'll explain why you can't do it in an HOA either. There's lawlessness in the country right now, and what you're describing isn't legal from the HOA's perspective. As for the federal system, in America, most states have their own constitution, and then there's the federal framework on top, and it's not that simple. So you can't just suddenly decide to do something blatantly illegal tomorrow. No, you can try, but the day after tomorrow, an honest independent court will stop you right away. There will be millions of lawsuits, like with Trump. Trump has 1 million lawsuits. It's a country full of lawyers, which isn't always positive, but the law functions, so that's not entirely accurate. You're referring to homeowners associations. And draft notices, I read, I don't want to be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it's Vinnytsia, the 21st either a battalion or whatever it's called. They're going to be handing out draft notices specifically in Vinnytsia or the Vinnytsia region.
Mobile groups, that's what they are. Yes, those are mobile groups.
They are called Sonderkommandos.
But I actually saw the information. I checked that representatives of the Homeowners Association and at the city level, this was approved by the mayor.
Well, just imagine, when it comes to doing something nasty to please the central authorities or on their orders, they're the first ones. But when you come to the mayor, I've dealt with this myself. Let's do this reform. Let's implement that reform. I don't have the authority. I would like to, but I don't have the authority. Do you see the situation?
The American magazine Forbes published a ranking of the richest people in the world, and there are 7 Ukrainian citizens on the list, including Akhmetov, Viktor Pinchuk, and the 5th president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. And now we're talking about the fact that Orban blocked this money for us, and we don't have a way to buy armor. He doesn't have money for weapons. But 7 Ukrainians are among the richest people in the world. What does that tell us?
There can't be peace when Akhmetov is somewhere in the top hundreds, but compared to others, now the world is such that they're already outsiders. This isn't the global Forbes list. In general, I don't want to look into their wallets, and I'm definitely not in favor of dispossession. And they didn't earn this money yesterday, or even the day before. It's all old money from the 1990s. In a specific way. But it was that kind of time. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making it so that every Ukrainian can earn that kind of money legally, preferably at home, without being a criminal. And everything else, but for that we need to do what I'm proposing, and I don't want to discuss them. I could talk about each of them individually. Well, he's on the Forbes list, and Poroshenko himself now wants to ban Telegram. And he goes around bragging that we finally achieved it, writes Rina Gerashchenko. Finally, they've put the ban on the agenda, Telegram. Is that all, damn it, that you can brag about in your political career? And it's about Telegram. And Durov, look, they're going to ban it. What's next? And is Durov sitting there with you? Does he agree to this? And do you have access to that button? These are people from the Tripillion culture who arrived in the age of artificial intelligence by time machine. They believe they can make decisions or ban things in the digital world. Petro Eliseevich is doing politics the way he was used to in the 90s when he was creating the Party of Regions in the early 2000s.
What do they say? What are they motivated by?
Gerashchenko is talking specifically about the need for people who run channels, especially those related to the media, to be identified. Maybe they're working for propaganda, which scares them, but what kind or even what propaganda is, we don't know anymore. Of course,
Gerashchenko will decide who is a propagandist and who isn't. If you walk in step with Poroshenko, that's rhetoric. You're not a propagandist. But if you, even what I just told you now, then you're basically the #1 enemy, you know? That doesn't suit us. We need something else. When the war began, Poroshenko's children were abroad. I'm not sure if Gerashchenko has kids, but none of them are fighting. And we'll be here making money, appearing in the media, controlling everything. The main thing is, look, those people, they're going to put it up for a vote again. What the IMF requires, like OLX to tighten things up, you know, to tighten the screws, so to speak, reports, taxes. Why is all this being done? If we remove the IMF, why do our people need this? There's a loophole there, a way for people to make money. So they urgently tighten it up because they can't let people earn. That's it. Zelensky just promised 1,500 hryvnias for 2.
Mari Danko announced this.
1,500 hryvnias, 1,500 hryvnias, that's $30, and these people, they need a $30 handout. A person is supposed to be happy with that. $30 even in Europe and America. 2 cups of coffee and 2 croissants. Well, you have to admit you should be happy. They gave you $30. If someone starts earning thousands or tens of thousands of dollars through OLX or something similar, you can't say much to them. Naturally, people like that aren't wanted.
what can we say at the end of our conversation that maybe God will help us? People say we need to rely on God, but we definitely need to do something ourselves to get involved in this process. At the very least, what people can do is subscribe to our channel, to yours if they want, and definitely subscribe to Liberty TV because there are short clips there.
You can find the most interesting information there, and in the description of this video you will see a link to that channel. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your attention. See you next time. Thank you.